Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome back to the TCEC Season 25 Superfinals between the two top engines Stockfish 16 and the Leela C0. As I'm recording this video, the result is +6 for Stockfish. Stockfish has now comfortable lead in the Superfinal. More than 50 rounds have to be played. Still many rounds have to be played, but if nothing dramatically changes, Stockfish is of course the winner of a new TCEC season. So I've sorted out really a beautiful spectacular game played now by these two top engines. In my opinion, very instructive game, especially the endgame stage. I think was very spectacular with many great endgame ideas, endgame strategies, with many endgame principles, which I think could be very useful in your preparation in the endgame stage. So in my opinion, very beautiful chess game played by these two top engines. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. The fish opened with the move e4. Leela's response was c5. The Sicilian knight to f3, d6, modern variations of the Sicilian, d4, open Sicilian, and after a couple more moves, we have the transposition into the dragon variation of the Sicilian defense, the popular Dragon Sicilian. So here Stockfish goes now with the move bishop to e3, bishop to g7. We have now the Yugoslav attack. We have talked about this Yugoslav attack many times here on my YouTube chess channel. G4, h4, h5, queen to d2 is of course the main goal. Trading off the dark square bishop, going of course into the flank attack, creating maybe in some lines a queen and rook battery on the h file, and trying to deliver a checkmate after black castles here on this side of the board. So here from f3, knight to c6, queen to d2, castling. We are now in the main line after bishop to c4, bishop to d7, and now immediately h4 here by Stockfish 16. Leela continues with a progressive rook to c8. Many times in the Sicilian, after the trades of pawns on d4, the c file is one of the most important files for black to attack white's position. In some lines, if possible, in some tactical opportunities, you can even sacrifice the rook for the knight. If nothing maybe protects the knight, then you can mess up the pawn structure. So don't forget about it. If you are maybe in some trouble, maybe you can sack the knight and provoke also some structural weaknesses in white's position. So far, of course, it's not possible, but keep that in mind maybe when you play always the Sicilian with the black pieces. So here bishop to b3 played by the fish, knight to e5 with the progressive idea to play knight to c4, at least getting rid of one of those very tricky bishops all over the board, because the bishops are very powerful. With the progressive move knight to c4, you're trying, at least as I said, to trade off the knight for one of these dangerous bishops. So queenside castling played by the fish. Now comes knight to c4, bishop to c4, rook to c4, and now h5. A very good move here by Stockfish, because after knight to h5, you have to play knight to h5. If you play g takes h5, then you're facing many weaknesses. Black will simply get destroyed with bishop to h6, followed with queen to g5. In some lines also knight to d5 is possible to deflect the knight maybe from the square h7. So it's a devastating position. So that's why with the move knight to h5, at least for a while, the files are locked. Stockfish continues now with the move g4. This is the way to go. After knight to f6, notice now that the h file is open. Okay, we gave up a pawn, but that's exactly how you should play this opposite side attack games, when the kings are on opposite sides like this. Many times in the Sicilian it happens. Then of course we're trying to open up the files, to be progressive, to be fast in our attack, because if you slow down somehow the pace of the game with the white pieces, black will find his counterattack has also, as I said, many opportunities here on the c file. Will play maybe a6, b5 if you don't play fast enough, if you don't attack him immediately. So here from knight to f6, knight to e2 played by the fish, not allowing maybe in some lines some tactical ideas with knight to e4, trapping the knight on d4. So far it wasn't possible. This wasn't a move that Stockfish had to play, but many times we forget about this. Maybe we go with the queen, then the knight to e4, then the piece is hanging here on d4. So many times I've seen this kind of a tactic. So also with in some ideas, bishop, for instance, bishop to g4, knight to g4 are also opportunities that we have seen as a tactical plan, then liberating the long diagonal for the dark square bishop. So far these threats are not working, but as I said, sometimes we forget about our opponent's threats, which simply continue with our own plan, and very forget maybe about some dangerous tactics that could happen in the middle game stage. So after move knight to e2, we have queen to a5 here by Leela. Stockfish continues now with the normal plan of the Yugoslav attack, trading off the bishops, getting the queen on h6, and maybe in some lines even deliver checkmate on h7. We have rook from f to c8. Leela continues with the normal plan with the c-file attack. We have bishop to g7, king to g7, and now queen to h6. The king has to step back, and now rook to d3. As I said, in many of these lines, maybe there is an opportunity. Rook takes c3, maybe knight to c3, rook takes c3, even sacrificing two rooks here for two knights, but then at least provoke some weakness. Then we can pick up this one. Dangerous checks could happen. Maybe the bishop can be included into the game. So that's why Stockfish protects it with the normal rook lift defense with the move. Beautiful, really beautiful defensive move. Rook to d3. Here after move bishop to a6, Leela is announcing also maybe the possibility to attack somehow the weak pawn on a2. So far, this pawn is not attacked twice, but when we move the rook, then the a2 pawn could be a huge strategic problem in white's position. So that's why Stockfish advances. Now after move a3, rook to c5, here played by Leela0, and now comes really a brilliant, a stunning move here by Stockfish 16. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for white. What would you do now in this particular position? Because we have to say it, black is having also many attacking chances. Stockfish found here really a beautiful defensive idea. What would you do? Okay, Stockfish played the amazing, this is in my opinion the move of the game, king to d2. Threatens now even the move b4. Look at this. If you don't react correctly, if you play a6, then you're getting b4. You'll simply lose the rook and the game is over. So after king to d2, rook to c4 was played by Leela, not allowing this fork with b4. But Stockfish only now continues with g5. And notice now, when the rook on d3 came and also the king on d2 here, Stockfish has a great protection of the knight on c3, which means now that this knight can play much more freely. And that's exactly what Stockfish planned. After knight to h5, now comes a beautiful knight to f4. No tactics are possible here. Maybe you can sack the rook, but you're getting simply destroyed because you cannot even play something like knight to f4. You're getting checkmated into with queen to h8. So after knight to f4, queen to e5 was played by Leela0. Stockfish grabs now the knight, g takes h5. We have rook to h5. There is now the checkmate threat on the h7, so that's why Leela had to retreat to g7. Stockfish plays now a beautiful endgame move. I have to say it, this is already endgame move because Stockfish realizes here that the Yugoslav attack didn't end here with a checkmate. It's nothing wrong about that because sometimes when you are on the attacking side, you're gaining at least something. You didn't maybe deliver check, but maybe you gain the strategic advantage. Maybe you gain this better piece activity. Maybe you gain the pawn or something. So nothing wrong also. Don't be unsatisfied with the outcome maybe if you didn't checkmate your opponent in the Yugoslav attack. No, we started with the idea to deliver checkmate, but now black defended in a decent way. But at least we have now the more active king, which is a great strategic element in potential endgames because our king is closer to the action. Our rook is closer to the action. This rook is very active. The knight is very well placed, can also occupy maybe the d5 weakness. So many strategic advantages we have here so far. Nothing spectacular game. As I said, the game is not tactical anymore. Of course, we love to see tactical games, but from this point on, I think Stockfish plays an amazing and beautiful and immortal endgame technique. So after rook king to e3, what should you do? Here, what black cannot take, I think here, the queen with the queen on h6, because after rook to h6, we will simply play f4, f5, rook to d2, rook to h2, putting more pressure against the h7 pawn, so it's not working. After king to e3, here Leela played rook to c5. Stockfish continues with queen to g7. Simplifies the game, trades off the queens, but as I said, now we have a new problem, the weakness on h7. That was now the beautiful plan here by Stockfish 16. What should again black do? If you play rook to h8 in order maybe to protect the pawn on h7, then again you're facing this problem. f4, f5, rook to h2, rook to h6. The knight is coming into the game, so slowly but surely I think white will build a beautiful attacking formation. Although it's an endgame stage, still there are even some checkmate threats if you don't react correctly if you allow your opponent to spread his wings with this minor pieces, with this rook. So this is not working. After rook to d2, here Leela tried h6 somehow to stop white's progress here on this side of the board. Stockfish takes it. It comes, of course, with a check. You have to react, and now Stockfish grabs the rook to c5, and rook to h2. This rook to d2 was very important in order to get the rook behind the pawn, and Stockfish has now a beautiful strategic element, which is now the supported pass pawn in the endgame stage, which is a huge advantage. So Leela continues with a5, Stockfish a4. We have f5, king to d4. Again, you see the king is getting closer. We have rook to c4, king to d3, rook to c5, b3, keeping the structure healthy here, keeping everything glued together and compact, not allowing again this rook to come to c4. After b3, bishop to f7, f4, f takes e4, and now an interesting choice by the fish, knight to e4. Here Leela immediately pins, of course, the knight with bishop to g6, Stockfish gets the king closer, and Leela continued with rook to f5. Even if you play here bishop to e4, this is not so dangerous, because actually look at this. After king to e4, this rook is holding now both of these pawns. Actually, after a couple more moves, maybe black can try b5, we trade it off, we get the king closer, we protect now both of these pawns, and slowly but surely the king will come to a3, maybe we'll push the pawn to c3, b4, and we would create another pass pawn. And when we create another pass pawn, when there's a pass pawn on the b file but also on the h file, I think this position would be simply too stretched for black in order to defend both sides. The king is always stuck to the defense of the potential promotion. If in one moment just push the put the king somewhere, then white is simply pushing the pawn further. So the king is paralyzed. Our king, from white's perspective, of course, can play much more freely. I think we can easily create a passer here. So this line is also not working. So that's why after king to d4, Leela didn't simplify the game by trading off the minor pieces. After king to d4, Leela continued with rook to f5. Stockfish continues with a beautiful knight to g5, king to h6, knight to e6. Look at this, how Stockfish uses every potential square in this endgame. Is now also in some lines threatening knight to d8, picking up maybe this pawn, then of course attacking this pawn. So again, it seems to me that the position is simply too stretched for black to defend this at the endgame. That of course Stockfish has a beautiful advantage. So after knight to e6, we have rook to f6. Stockfish protects now the knight. The knight is protecting the pawn. We have king to h7, and now a very tricky move here by the fish, c4. Leaving simply the pawn on h6 unprotected, Stockfish says, okay, I paralyzed black enough. The pieces are now simply coordinated too much here on the king side. Now the basic game is transposing simply to the queen side. Here threats are going to happen. After move king to h6, Stockfish continues with king to c3, is now of course trying to get somehow here an attack, maybe protect this pawn. Then, as I said, knight to d8 attacking this one. So from this point on, Stockfish is announcing simply a queen side attack. After king to c3, bishop to h5, Stockfish plays rook to e3, bishop to g6. Even if you play here bishop to f7, as we said, then we have this one. You can maybe pick up this one, we pick up the pawn on e7. Now the bishop is hanging, we can pick up this one. Again, it would be a devastating position here for black. So we have to also say the e7 is a huge structural weakness in black's position. The backward pawn here on e7 is also a target by white. After rook to e3, bishop to g6, now a check, you have to cover. Stockfish plays rook to e3, bishop to g6, and now rook to e1. Here we have b6 by Leela, knight to d4, giving up the pawn now on f4. But if you play rook to f4, then again this problem is coming. Rook takes e7, rook to e6. This one is weak, this one is weak. As I said, white's king is simply close enough to the action. Maybe you can in some line deliver a couple of checks, but never perpetuals or something. So these are obvious targets now for white. So that's why after knight to d4, rook to f7 was played by Leela, knight to c6. Now Leela takes out now the pawn on f4. Stockfish grabs it now with the knight. We have king to g7. Leela is desperately trying now to get somehow the king into the game. The king was always far away from the action. Stockfish continues with rook to g1, pins now the bishop, is of course twice attacking now the piece, so forcing basically after rook to f3 Leela to defend this bishop. But now Stockfish places the knight on a beautiful square. Knight to d5 is of course the fork, and Stockfish is now going for the b6 pawn. Rook to f2 check, king to a3, we have rook to f3, knight to e7, again forcing the retreating move by Leela c0, rook to g3, not rushing here, connecting now first of all the rook to the third rank, of course protecting also the b3 pawn, because in some lines I think it could be also very dangerous if you allow rook to f3 followed with bishop to c2 by black. Then maybe black could find some kind of a counter attack around the square b3, rook to g3, not rushing here, everything is good together, everything is compact. So Leela continues of course with king to f7. Stockfish plays again a normal plan, knight to d5, rook to f1, and many of us I think would go for this pawn, but Stockfish plays a brilliant move, rook to e3, cutting off simply the king's ability to play. Stockfish is saying, I will eventually take out now the pawn on b6, but I don't have to rush. If our opponent gets maybe the king towards here the queen side, and if you maybe even grab one of these pawns, still I kind of feel that this could be a drawish position, because the king is then a good defender. Maybe in this 3 versus 2 situation, black can force a draw. It's a long run, of course, to think about these types of positions, but really interesting choice. That's really a beautiful principle in chess, cutting off your opponent's ability to play. This is the way to go. Beautiful move here by Stockfish 16. Rook to a1, okay, a couple of checks, nothing perpetual, of course, only 2 checks here by Leela, nothing spectacular. Rook to e7 by the fish. Now Stockfish goes for this pawn. Leela attacks now the king, is hoping also to deliver checkmate here in a2, but of course Stockfish has now this resource, knight to c3, we have bishop to d3, knight to d5, again with the same plan. Stockfish first delivers a check, no good square for Leela is there to get again the king into the game. King to g7 we have here, and now knight to c3, again bishop to d3, and finally Stockfish grabs now the pawn on b6. The king is far away from the action, so from this point on I think the game is becoming a one-way ticket in white's favor. Rook to h3, knight to d5, knight to b5, bishop to c4, but of course now knight to d6. Stockfish found this beautiful tactic, of course attacks the bishop and also liberates now the b file, connecting now the rook on b6 to the weak pawn on b3. Bishop to e2 by Leela. Stockfish goes for another pawn, goes for the a5 pawn. We have rook to h5. Stockfish simply goes here. We have king to f7, and now rook to c5, forcing trades of rooks. Leela retreats, and Stockfish grabs now another pawn. It's of course a completely winning endgame here for white. We have bishop to d1, king to b4, rook to h4, rook to c4, rook to h3. Now Stockfish again covers also with the knight, pushes simply the pawn further. Rook to c2, we have bishop to d1, rook to d2, again attacking the bishop, but also again cutting off the king's ability to play, not allowing the king to come closer. Bishop to h5, rook to h2, pinning now the bishop here. After king to e8, you can guess what the fish is doing. Stockfish immediately sacrifices now the rook for the exchange, but has now 2 connected passers supported by the knight, and it was game over in this particular position. Leela c0 resigns. So what happens? Let's see. Rook to h5, we simply push the pawn further. Look at this, what would have happened probably. We get simply the king here. You don't have access to the squares here because the d7 is taken. If you play king to e7 or king to d8, for instance, you get to fork on c6, so it's also not working. So after, I don't know, king to a5, you could maybe try I don't know, rook to a8, then we simply push the pawn further. In one moment we can attack, and now when we connect 2 pawns on the 6th rank, the game is over, and from this point on, okay, obviously this is a simple win here for white. As I said, after move rook to h5 in this particular position, Leela c0 resigned. Great game by the fish, great endgame strategies, great endgame principles, going into favorable endgame, cutting off the king's ability to play, going for the weaknesses, never rushing, first defending, also stretching the position on both sides. Also very important element in endgames, in my opinion. Very spectacular game here by Stockfish 16. So as I said, Stockfish is now in a comfortable lead, has 6 points more than Leela c0. Amazing performance so far by the fish, but Leela also won many games, but Stockfish is, as I mentioned before, winning the reverse games too. So basically many pairings of this game. Stockfish is winning so far. It's a pure domination by the fish. LcZero, I think, will not win the TCEC season 25. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really wild stuff. Beautiful Yugoslav attack here by Stockfish 16. If you want to see more Yugoslav attacks here on my YouTube channel, check out our coverage so far. Here are some really amazing, brutal, spectacular tactical games in this opening. And if you want to see more brutal attacks here by Stockfish 16 and also by some other top engines, check out our commented chat schemes. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.